Hello everyone and welcome back. So today we are starting a new series on Node.js, and in this video we are just going to introduce Node.js to you. So we are going to talk about what is Node.js, why we use Node.js, some of the cool things we can use Node.js to do, some comparison between Node.js and browser, some history about Node.js, cool snippet, and many more. So for this and more, grab your notepads and let's get started. Alright, so the first question that comes in mind is what is Node.js? Let's dive into the definition. Node.js is an open source and cross platform JavaScript runtime environment. Now, let's break this definition down. When we say open source, what it means is Node.js source code is publicly available, so everyone can download it or access it. Okay. The next part is cross platform. When we say cross platform, it means Node.js can run on different operating systems, it being Windows, Linux, Unix, Macs, and etc. Okay, and the last part is JavaScript runtime environment. And what this basically means is JavaScript provides the playground where projects or programs written in JavaScript can be executed. Okay, Node.js itself runs on V8 JavaScript engine, which is Google Chrome core. Node.js is also a single thread process. Now let's explain what it means when we say Node.js is a single thread process. Now imagine you have one person who can do one thing at a time. So in Node.js, this person is the single thread. So when you give them a task, they focus on it until they are done before moving onto the next one. Now imagine there are a queue of tasks. Okay, Node.js take one task at a time from the queue and give it to the single thread to work on. While the thread is working, this task or the task in the queue will have to wait until it gets to their turn. This makes Node.js efficient because it doesn't waste time in switching between tasks, okay, like other systems do. Also, Node.js uses asynchronous IO preemptive technique to avoid blocking. Okay, we are actually going to dive deeper into that. So for now, just know that it's a single thread process and it uses asynchronous IO preemptiveness or preemptive to avoid blocking. Now, one may ask, why should you use Node.js? Here are 5 key reasons why you should. And I'm going to start with the first point, which is language sharing across stack. JavaScript and TypeScript are widely used or widely known when it comes to front-end technology. Node.js allows you to use JavaScript for your backend development as well. And as a result, it becomes easier to match your backend functions to your front-end function, which means you can share code between your client and server application while using Node.js. The next step I would like to talk about is rapid development. Node.js makes process of starting development very easy. With few lines of code, you can set up your server up and running. The third step I would like to talk about is Node Package Manager, which is one of the best reasons why you should choose Node.js. NPM lets you download codes created by other developers and use them in your own project. This means you don't need to start coding from scratch. Node.js is home to the largest software library registry in the world. NPM makes managing application dependencies easy, installing not just the library code, but also all the dependencies of the library. The fourth one I would like to talk about is the native support in Amazon. We know that all web application needs to be hosted, and Amazon service is the most popular hosting platform around, which supports Node.js, making it very powerful to use. The last one I will talk about is the single thread event loop architecture. Most web development framework uses multi-thread request response architecture to handle concurrency. Node.js uses single thread event loop architecture. This style of event handling favors microservice architecture. And with these 5 reasons, I hope you now have your reason why you should choose Node.js. Now, let's move on to what or some of the things we can use Node.js to do. We can use Node.js to generate dynamic content pages. Okay. We can also use Node.js to create, open, read, delete, and close files on our server. We can also use Node.js to collect form data. So when you make a post request from your client side, you can use Node.js to get the form data and then work on it. You can also use Node.js to add, delete, modify data, in your database as well. So these are some of the cool things you can do with Node.js. Now let's move on onto the comparison between Node.js and browser. With the programming language, we know both of them uses JavaScript, right? Now let's move on onto the advantages when it comes to front-end developers and full-stack developers. Full-stack developers have some slight advantage because Node.js allows them to build both their front-end and back-end application with Node.js. Now, with ecosystem differences, browser focuses on interacting with the DOM and web platform APIs like cookies, okay, which are not available in Node.js. Node.js also provides models. When we say model, they are basically codes written and then stored in different files that can be imported and then used. And these models are not present when you are using the browser. The next one is environment control. In Node.js, developers can control the environment knowing the specific Node.js version to use. So when you are building your project, you can specify the kind of Node.js version that should be able to run your project. But with browser, the development lack that control because you don't know which browser your visitor or the person running your application might be using, whether Google Chrome, whether Opera Mini or the rest. Now let's talk about the JavaScript version support. Node.js allow using modern ES 2015 plus JavaScript based on a support version. But with browser, it lacks that and it may require some form of code transformation to support older versions of JavaScript. Another ecosystem difference is Node.js support both common JS and ES model system. We will talk about models in our next video. For now, just know that it supports both common JS and ES model system. But with browser, it supports only the ES model standard. Now, some history about Node.js. Node.js was initially written by Randall in 2009, about 13 years after the introduction of the first server-side JavaScript environment, Netscape's LiveWire Pro Web. The initial release was supported by only Linux and Mac OS X. Its development and maintenance were led by DAO and later sponsored by JoinNet. So there is a little history about Node.js. Now, the last thing to talk about in this video is the code snippet. And as I told you earlier on, it has rapid development, which means small line of code, you can set your server up and running. So here comes to the end of this video. In our next video, we are actually going to dive into models. We are going to look at some types of models and how we can use them. I hope this video really helped. If it did, kindly click on the subscribe button, like this video, share with friends, and see you in the next video.